So let's do that. We're going to be talking today about AI overreaching, which is not very a term that we see news or articles talking about all the time. But we thought it was going to be a interesting perspective to bring on. We talk about opting in and opting out from some AI features in the past, especially when we were speaking about emails. I don't know if you guys are going to remember that, but we actually talk about that. Um, some tools right now, or some apps, or some social media applications that we have in our phones, they come with embedded AI feature. So some of them we can turn off, right? When I say opt out, I mean turning off. Some of them we cannot. So, or we can, but then we ended up losing some of the ability of the app to provide us useful insights or useful functionalities. That's one example that's Gmail is one example of that. So I ended up keeping my AI feature enabled on my Gmail, which is unfortunate, but we can talk more about that too, and you guys can also share with me if you are using any of that. One second, because I wanted to try to put the chat here. Where's the chat? Let me wait a second. Let me leave this here. This is much better. So I can see the chat in my other screen. If anyone have questions throughout the presentation. For those who are watching recorded, again, you're not going to be able to interact with us, but of course, if you have other questions, you can just email us with your questions. So what do we mean by overreaching, right? In AI specifically, is when a system collects more data than what's needed to maybe process the data and give us some information. Sometimes they retain this data longer than what was expected or longer than what we want them to retain that data. And remember, we cannot just put the blame on the tool, right? Sometimes we are the ones oversharing, and that's also a problem. So we don't want to overshare, but we want to make sure whatever they are collecting, we know for how long, how much, and which types of data those tools are collecting. Or they might be making inferences that you didn't explicitly provide. So all those things can imply that AI might be overreaching, or they might not have all the guardrails that they should have. As I mentioned, just for explanation here, AI tools are embedded in search bars, right? The search web browsers, emails, photos, articles, etc. So when we are interacting with those websites, there are ways that we can opt out. Of course, convenience often trades off with privacy. And that's a problem, right? Because then if they are overreaching, maybe they are accessing information that we don't want them to access. Um, Also for context, we're going to talk about cache later on. I don't want to mix some of the technical terminology. Um, so just give like a foundation of how AI tools are collecting our data. Some of them are direct data that we are providing. Maybe we are uploading a document. Maybe we are writing a prompt, right? In past classes, we talk about what a prompt is. Sometimes when you are interacting with Siri or Alexa, and you are telling them things, and those questions they are probably being saved on your device. Because if every day you wake up and you ask Alexa, the time of the day, the time of the day, if there's any activities on your calendar, or if you're asking things every single day, and the AI is able to identify a pattern, right? The next day is going to be much easier for that tool to already know what you're going to be looking for. So, and if that information is saved in that device for that particular function, in that case, Alexa or Siri, it's already there because it's saved, because you, as the user, you provided that. So I just want us to keep in mind and understand the relationship that we have with our devices and where and how this data is collected. Data passively collected, as I mentioned, the usage patterns, metadata. So sometimes I think I mentioned, I talk about that, right? When we take a photo in our device, and in that photo, there is your device, if the location services are on, are turned on, the photo is going to have a coordination. Exactly, to point out exactly where that photo was taken, the time of the day that the photo was taken, the length of the video that was taken, whatever it is, the metadata is the data about the data. We talk about that as well in our terminology class about what metadata is. So everything is collected, and with that information, using algorithms and using code, a software engineer or a system can program a program that is able to put that information and transform that information into intelligence, right? That's when we think about the chain of data, we think about data, information, and knowledge, right? Every time that we are producing some type of data, there is a insightful information behind it. But then we need humans to look at that, or maybe now robots, right? To look at that and make sense of that data. And then data that is the data that we infer, right? Preferences, habits, risk profiles. So every time that you are consuming something, there's actually a research on, sometimes there are some advertisers, they are able to predict when a woman is going to get pregnant based on some habits and things that they've been doing throughout the past few months, right? Why they know that? It's not that they have a crystal ball. No, it's just like we are humans, we are animals of habits, right? And the more we enforce those habits, the better whoever is observing us will be able to predict things that we do. So the things, every time that we're interacting with our phones, with our tablet, with our laptop, information is being created, aka intelligence is being created. So what happens after you interact with AI, right? There are three concepts that I want to talk about here. The first one is processing versus storage, or processing data versus storing data. The first one is processing. AI uses your data in the moment to produce a response. So processing of the data is unavoidable. Okay. At the moment that you type something on ChatGPT, let's say, or Gemini, the data is being processed. If the AI doesn't process your data, it cannot respond, right? It's kind of obvious. But processing data is one thing. The other thing is storing your data. Your data is kept after the interaction ends, right? So you don't want that to happen. So sometimes what I do, I can use Gemini. If I log in Gemini right now, it's going to be connected most likely with my Gmail. Okay. But if I open Gemini on a private tab or an anonymous tab, actually, Gemini, you might need mandatorily to have a Gmail. However, I know for ChatGPT, you can ask things to ChatGPT even if you don't have a ChatGPT account. They might limit your usage and how many questions and how many prompts you can ask, but I think you can use anonymously. I'm not sure about Gemini because every time that I open Gemini, I open on my browser and my Gmail is connected, so I'm always logged in. But anyways, sometimes what I do, I try, that's for ChatGPT. I go or like my Safari on my phone, I just type something if I want to find out about something that is not on Google or is like a mathematics calculation, logical, then I just type on ChatGPT and it's not going to be able to retain that information that is tagged, that is related to the memory that is on my official ChatGPT, where ChatGPT knows everything that I've been talking in the past few months. Okay. Because in that case, when the Gen AI tool, in that case, is able to store the data, the chat is going to appear in a conversation history. For those who use ChatGPT, you're going to be able to see on the left side all the chats that you had with ChatGPT before. And that's the same for Claude and for Gemini. And sometimes the company keeps those logs for days, months, or even longer. I'm not saying that we need to be reading all the terms and conditions when we create an account on those websites, right? But you're probably gonna find out when and for how long they are keeping your data in these contracts that they provide. So just for a vocabulary standpoint here, I just want to make that difference in nuances on when we're talking about handling, okay, managing that data. Temporary memory versus persistent memory is the same similar concept, right? When we are interacting with ChatGPT without being logged in our account, they are just processing that data in a temporary memory. So if you close the browser or if you close the tab, gone. You're not going to be able to find that information anymore. Persistent memory is when the data is kept. It's saved somewhere. It's saved in a server of that company. And training data versus personalization of the data. When those tools are using data to train, they use data to train their models. Or sometimes if you give data that is very, very specific, they're going to return an answer that could be very specific and customized for your prompt. But again, as we talked about in the past, the data in the internet is so vast, and usually what the information does is just predict the next word, right? So there's data that is used for training, and there's data that is not used for training, that is just personalized. But I want to make sure, and that's what we're going to talk about towards the end of our session today. We're going to see how we can opt out from some of those tools. Okay, not all of them. It's not possible. I wouldn't be able to cover all the social media platforms that everyone uses, but I put the main ones here for us. We're going to have videos and we're going to have some explanations as well. And not all AI systems are going to learn from your data. Okay, some of them don't. And policies vary widely by provider. Okay, if we're talking about Google, if we're talking about Meta, if we're talking about other websites out there, for example, I write on Substack. Substack has also an option that you can opt out, so they don't use your data to train their model, their AI model. Any questions so far? Is it clear? Pretty clear?
Pretty clear.
Yeah. Let's talk about where privacy risks come from. And again, it is in the guardrails of those companies, but also of how much data we share. Okay. On their side, sometimes they are going to retain your data, but they're not going to tell you that they are retaining the data. So, data retention without transparency. Some companies do that, but how much do we really know how much data they are keeping without erasing the data after we interact with the system? The secondary use of data, and that's again, that's something that we as civilians, right, maybe we don't have access all the time. And I want to touch that on the secondary use of the data. Secondary, and is a term. Secondary use of data is the information that is originally collected for one purpose. For example, patient care. And I know we have a HIPAA in the United States, etc., but I'm just talking about general view of the use of that data. And then this data that was collected for one purpose is used later for another, training a diagnostic algorithm. Common sources include electronic health records, educational records, and public internet data. Although data is often de-identified or anonymized, risks of re-identification remain. And I'm going to give an example, okay? When I was doing my master's in computer science, my advisor at the time, she was gathering information of patients that were already passed away, but they had Alzheimer and before they passed away, and the hospitals and the clinics she was working with, they shared the data with her, with like authorization because the patients were under a certain type of treatment. So this was a legal way of collecting data and understanding that is going to be part of a trial to use that information because my advisor was a doctor. She was a doctor, but also she was a computer scientist, and she wanted to understand the pattern in Alzheimer's patients. So what I'm explaining here is sometimes the secondary use of data is very clear when the patients are part of trials, usually, right? We sign a form, etc. They sign a form saying, yes, you can collect my data for research purposes. But sometimes it's not disclosed to the patients that the data is going to be used for something else. And here I'm just bringing a health care type of example, right? But just as in healthcare, there are many other ways of a data being used for a non primary intent. So we need to be careful with that too. And that's where one of the privacy risks come from. Human review of AI interactions, AI annotators. Since I mentor people working in technology, what I see a lot are people applying for jobs as AI annotators. And usually these people, they review questions and answers from real users, especially in translations, right? They hire AI annotators in different countries, speaking different languages, so the AI model can become more and more refined. So there are people out there reviewing questions and answers from humans, from the things that we ask and the things that we receive back. That's another thing to keep in mind. I don't know of how much of course, they don't know that is Mariana that lives at X, Y, and Z Street in Cambridge, Massachusetts, was asking this question for this particular reason. No, they don't know that. But the information we are sharing, it's not that private. Always keep that in mind. And again, data sharing with third parties. Um, that's so funny. I do have an email. I think I mentioned here in other classes. I do have an email that is just for advertising. Sometimes I like if I go to a shop, to a store, I don't give my Gmail official email because it's bombarded by ads and it sucks, right? So sometimes and we see that all the time with data leak, major companies that we think that they are very secure and safe, they might not be. So why do we think AI tools are going to be that safe? We need to be careful with that as well. And I also wanted to bring some of the misconceptions we have with AI, right? Oh, AI is spying on me. AI tools are sentient. Private mode is total anonymity. No, that's not true. right? AI is not spying on you. Of course, if you want to have a thing that you can cover a camera, do that, right? We talked about that before I mentioned, and I think everyone should have this. But we need to go out of the misconceptions and understand how practically things are happening, right? The things that we should do, like cleaning the cache. The cache is the cache. I think they say cache. Yeah, the cache. They clean that so the data is not the your data is not stored somewhere, right? Instead of just saying, oh, yeah, AI is spying on me or spying on my phone. Yeah, turn off some of your location services because, of course, Trader Joe's will know when you're gonna go to the store because a perfect example is perfect. I go to the gym and close to my gym, there's a Starbucks. I'm getting close to the gym, my Starbucks pop up on my phone saying like, "Oh, Starbucks app," I swear. And every time that I want to open the thing to go to the gym, but then shows up Starbucks. It's not that Starbucks is spying on me. It's simply because my location settings on my phone is turned on because I want it to be turned on because I need to use Google Maps. So I know what I'm getting myself into. So AI is not spying on us, right? It's we are providing the data. We're opting in. If it's logged in, then it's there. The information is there. But if there is some type of spies, probably it would be a scandal of those companies because it's not disclosed to the final customer, to the final client, that is us. Okay. And here, important part of the session was what can you do, right? What can we do to prevent that overreaching? And I want to talk first about account level controls, right? Turning off data retention or the training use of the data when it's possible, because as I mentioned in the beginning, not every website gives you that option. Managing conversation history. You can always clear things and delete documents and delete stuff in the different apps that you use. And understand when you're opting for something and when you're opting out. That's basically what we need to do. Okay, excuse me. Things to never share. And that's something that I always mention here. So you know by now, right? Never mention social security numbers. Don't upload medical records into those tools. Never do that. Never share financial account details. Okay? Even though like I think routing numbers are out there, but don't share this type of information when you're talking to ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. And never share passwords or authentication codes because there's a lot of scammers out there as well. We talked about that in previous classes about I think was one of the classes that we were talking about shopping online and being safe when shopping online. I talk about authentication codes. So never share this type of information. Never upload documents that might contain some type of sensitive information as well. Okay, so just be mindful, like be aware here. When you are interacting with AI, regardless which AI, Gen AI tool you use, always use placeholders. Always summarize instead of passing raw documents. And always remove identifying details, right? Maybe your age, where you live, some of your habits. You don't need to disclose that. So, because they're training, they're using the data to train and to predict the new habits as well. Here, one example on summarize instead. I think that's the placeholder to use placeholders. Write an email. I think here is just an example, but I still think that we should be able to write an email to your bank explaining that something was compromised. And sometimes it's not even through an email. Maybe you just want a phrase so you can call them and talk to them on the phone. So never share, even if you think like, it's okay. No, it's not okay. Write an email to my bank or explain, help me with a prompt to explain to my bank that my social security was compromised and my account number is X, Y, and Z. Don't use that. You can say, write an email or help me write a paragraph explaining to my bank that my social security number and account were compromised and request next steps. Or you can ask ChatGPT, just an example again, what would be the next steps when my account is compromised? ChatGPT, because they scan and they grab data from the internet, they might tell you to just freeze your social security number. You can do that online as well. I don't know how to do that right now, at the top of my mind. We need to search about that. That's not part of the class. Uh, but usually in that case, AI is able to just grab information from the internet and give us the answer. But what the point here is really to show to always have a placeholder in the sensitive information. Another thing that you shouldn't do, here's my full medical report from last year. Maybe you are going to upload your blood work, blood exam, whatever. Can you explain what it means? And then you ended up pasting or uploading an 8-page document with your name, your date of birth, provider, the codes, etc. No, don't do that. I have a medical report stating I was diagnosed with X, prescribed Y, and I advise lifestyle changes. Can you explain these terms in plain language? Maybe you have a difficulty in understanding that. So yeah, sure. Ask a Gen AI to explain that to you. But also remember, even if you don't use Gen AI, even if you type in Google, Google is always going to give you the worst of the scenarios. You might think you have cancer, knock on wood, right? So, but like it's very dramatic, and not never none of those answers are ever gonna replace going to the doctor or going to the hospital, talking with a doctor, talking with a nurse. So if you are curious about something, and here is the catch, right? If you're curious about something, sure, you can ask, but never, never share your sensitive information or things that are very specific to you. And never take those answers as the final answer or the final diagnosis. If you are just asking for some insight, it's okay. But remember to not take that for as like the final diagnosis. Okay. This is just an example on where not to share specific or upload the documents. Device and platform settings, usually you can also opt out from there with browser permissions, microphone and camera access, app level privacy settings as well. So you have some like your phone is the phone level, right? Let's say you are enabling location services on your phone. When you enable location services on your phone, it's going to enable for everything, okay, for all the apps. But then if you want to enable or disable app by app, you need to go app by app, and then you need to disable that there. Okay, that's another way of doing it. Um, for example, every time that I think my Google Meet is already default, but if you never use Google Meet and then you open Google Meet for the first time, it's gonna ask for access on your camera. And you can say always allow or allow once, right? So those things are what differentiates from broader access, broader permission, and app level permission. And I want to point out some out before I promise we're gonna talk about some of the apps and how to opt out. But before we do that, I wanted to share some of the red flags and when to note AI is likely overreaching. When AI is asking for unnecessary personal data, it's very rare that if you're talking with ChatGPT, I at least I've never seen that, and I have never heard or like big news about that, or like AI is asking you for information. Can you please give me your social security number? If you are interacting with a chatbot, and the chatbot start asking you questions, then you need to be skeptical because might be a real human, a human behind the scenes, behind the screen, trying to take your social security number, because it's very rare that companies will be asking you to put in plain text your social security number. But just be mindful again. Some companies, they have very vague explanations of how they use the data. They don't have a clear deletion option in the website or in the conversation. And sometimes for those websites that are not that are not from big, large companies, right? Like Microsoft, like Google, maybe you are interacting with a chatbot in a random website. You don't know how they're going to be using your data, why you're going to be interacting with that chatbot, why you're going to be exchanging information, especially sensitive information, with a chatbot. Don't do that. And always ask yourself, would I be comfortable if this type of data were exposed? Right? Ask yourself that question, not only exposed, but also if this data was used against me, right? Or used on my behalf. We had examples here in the class that people were using driver's license to pass as if they were someone else, right? So not only if the data is exposed, but what if this data is used to harm me or to harm my reputation or to harm my financial assets or whatever. Okay, always ask those questions. And as best practice, always assume the prompts are going to be reviewed by a human, okay? Adjust defaults immediately when you know you can do that. And when you are in doubt, when you're interacting with a generative AI, for example, always anonymize whatever information you are sharing with them, right? With it. Makes sense? Does everyone use Gen AI to share? I imagine none of you have been using to share sensitive information, but so far so good. Yeah. And how to stop, right? And I want to share some of the platforms that we use that you might be able to disable these functionalities. And one of them that I ask that I get a lot of questions about is on WhatsApp, because it's so annoying. And as of now, there's no way that you remove that little, for those who uses WhatsApp, okay? But it's impossible to remove that circle that we have in the WhatsApp. And I was watching some videos. I'm like, okay, I'm sure we cannot do that. But then I started watching some videos on YouTube to bring to you guys. And like, there was a person, and in a few, I think two or three videos, they basically did something on WhatsApp and you ended up erasing your entire WhatsApp and all the conversations are gone. And I'm like, this is a disservice because you are not cleaning, you're not removing Meta AI, and you're basically telling people to just erase the entire app. Like, I don't want to lose the conversations that I have there, right? Not with Meta AI. I'm talking like with my mom, with my father, with my grandma, with my sister, with my brother. Like the conversations are there and they're kept for a reason. So just be careful when you watch those videos online. Make sure that they're going to be doing whatever you want them to do, because sometimes you are just following the step by step and then you ended up erasing everything, removing and deleting everything. You don't want that. However, sorry, I mixed the slides, but this is what I want to talk about. However, what you can do is to erase the memory of Meta AI in your WhatsApp. And how do you do that? If, and that's only if you already had a conversation with Meta AI, okay? The conversation will be there. You are going to click on the Meta AI, it's going to show up as a chat. Then you're going to click on the name of the person, like the person will be Meta AI. Then you're going to go to memory. My phone is charging downstairs, so I wouldn't be able to follow right now, but I tried and I had two conversations and I was able to delete both of them. Then you're going to go to view all. Then you are going to click delete all. Delete all. Okay, you're going to see just two buttons and then you can delete. This is to only delete Meta AI. You're only going to delete whatever um, memory and information was stored in Meta AI. This is the persistent memory that I mentioned in the beginning of the class. Remember? Because it's still there. It's saved, it's stored, and you want to delete that. So you can follow this step by step. There's also, this is from the Wire is a magazine, and they talk about how to do that. And I left that URL in the end of the presentation in the sources. Going back to the Gmail one, I wanted to show how to turn off your Gemini AI features on Gmail. But remember, when you do that, it's going to impact how Gmail sorts out your emails. And that's very unfortunate. So that's why I have my turn it on. It's very short.
There's a lot of people that don't like AI and are a little hesitant. They would prefer maybe if the smart features would not be in Gmail. Is there a way to turn them off? Yes. If you go to your Gmail account, on the upper right, you'll see there's a gear icon, which are the settings. Go to See All Settings, and then go down. And make sure you're in the General tab, and simply go down. You'll see all the smart features. Smart Compose, suggested on or off. Smart Compose Personalization, on or off. So that's another one. And of course, Smart Reply, on or off. And there's a general check mark, Smart Features. If you turn that off, turn off and reload, you'll see that that is now going to be, let's go back to all settings. See all settings. Here we go. And go down. You'll see that everything pretty much smart is now turned off. Turn on smart features. Turn on smart features. Turn on smart features. So you see that it impacts grammar, spelling, autocorrect, a lot of things. So that is where you need to know that doing so will impact a lot of what Gmail can do and can help you with. It's up to you. If you turn it off, the Gemini smart features are gone. I personally will turn them on and reload because I do like to have the Gemini smart features that are, of course, being used now. It is true that a lot of the features that it actually disables are features that used to be enabled without AI, like the autocorrect, like spelling suggestions, grammar. And that is a little sad because they kind of put everything in one place in the smart features of Gemini. But hey, you want to turn it off? You have the smart feature option that you can turn on or off, depending of what you like and what you think of all of these.
So as you could see, unfortunately, now if you remove that smart feature, your emails are not sorted out by promotions, by spam, by all the updates, the tabs that Gmail has. So it's a problem because as you can see, if you go back here, primary, promotion, social, when he didn't have that turned on, everything goes here. So it's kind of annoying because one thing leads to the other, right? So now we're on the mercy of like opting in and then Gmail is analyzing everything. But you can change some of them, like the auto spelling, autocorrect, etc. You can do one by one. Again, here you go to settings and you can make those modifications. We talk about Meta AI on WhatsApp. Here, how to stop Twitter. Right now, they call X, to use your data. For those who are familiar with Twitter and X, you can turn it off on Grok. I think that's the name of their AI tool.
Here is the quick way to stop X from using your data, your posts, and your photos, and everything else for being used to train an AI run by Elon Musk. Go to twitter.com or x.com, load up your homepage, and then go to More, and then select Settings and Privacy. And by the way, you cannot do this on a mobile device yet. Then from here, you want to go to Privacy and Safety. And then on the right side of the page, you'll see a whole bunch of different options here. Scroll to near the bottom, and you'll see one that says Grok. So Grok is the AI system that X is building right now. Select that. At the very top, it says Data Sharing. Allow your posts as well as your interactions, inputs, and results with Grok to be used for training and fine-tuning. There's no good reason to have this selected, so deselect it, and then your data supposedly won't be used by X for this training purposes.
Wow, yeah. So so supposedly, right? We do those things. We try to opt out. We are doing the best we can, but again, we never know if it's being used or not. And I wanted to also share, I think, one more that is the AI feature on Outlook, because I know some of you use Gmail, but some of others, I think you guys already mentioned that some of you do use Outlook and some of the other domains from Microsoft. So here we go.
To remove AI features from Outlook, where Outlook for Windows, also known as the new Outlook, in case you're unaware, has a feature that analyzes your email content to provide connected experiences. And although it doesn't mention AI, it is normally used for AI-powered experiences, as Microsoft likes to call it. So if you want to remove AI from the new Outlook for Windows, it's actually quite simple. And what we would do is head up to the top right to the gear icon, the settings, click on that, head over to General, Privacy and Data, and here you'll see, if you scroll down, you'll see Privacy Settings. Click on that, and here you have Turn on experiences that analyze your content. Toggle that off, because it says some connected experiences in Outlook will use your content to help you create, communicate, and collaborate more effectively. And this is actually using AI. And if you want to increase your privacy even more, you can turn off, as I have already, send optional diagnostic and usage data to Microsoft.
Remember that sometimes the diagnostic and usage data is the one that helps them when you have some type of error in your email. You know, sometimes if there's a glitch or it's like, oh, do you want to run the diagnosis and send back to Apple or to Microsoft? Sometimes when you do that, you prevent them to analyze your data. So you see, as it's a tough position that they put us, right? Because we want to share information to help on, like, so we don't get errors or whatever, but at the same time we are just giving them the information all the time. So there's always a give and take here.
And here's another toggle you can turn off if you so wish. Turn on experiences that download online content. You can do the same with that, but this is the setting to remove AI features from Outlook. And obviously, if you want to put everything back, you can just toggle that on accordingly. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
No, we watched that. So here again, for those who uses Outlook, you can also go on that step by step and remove that feature from your email. If you guys use any other type of email provider, just let me know because more and more we do presentations on that. And the ones that I have always in mind is Gmail and Outlook. I don't know if anyone still uses Yahoo. If you do, also I can like do more research and bring more content around Yahoo. But from what I remember was like most likely most of you use Gmail and Outlook. And here, oh my gosh, it's going to the video again. Um, and here I also I did put a AI terminology in some of the other presentations, but this one here I updated with some of the new concepts as um human review, data retention, inference, input, metadata specifically for AI overreaching, opt-in and opting out, right? Opting is when you say yes, opt out is when you say no, overreaching in AI, and training data. That is the information used to improve future versions of AI models. So the more we talk in those sessions, the more I can bring more of those terms and then create this big list with terms. I really hope it helps for those who are interested. You know, like sometimes it's just is useful to have a chit sheet, and be able to always have and refer back to whatever we present. And here are the resources and some of the websites that you can consult later if you're interested in understanding more, okay, how it works for WhatsApp AI. And those are some of the sources that I personally use when I'm researching as well. Um, if you guys have any other questions, we can talk on the chat, but that's all for now. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you, Irina. I hope this was helpful.
Ariana, I just started
Yes.
using Proton as an email account, and I was told that it's very secure.
Uh, can one of you? Oh yeah, go on mute. There you go.
Who
Uh,
who
I
was
still
asking a
hear.
question?
I wasn't asking. I was just saying that for an email, I started using Proton,
Mm,
Proton, and I heard that was a
mm-hmm.
pretty secure site to use.
Oh, Proton. Actually, I do have one of my clients use Proton, and he works with security. And to be totally honest, I had no idea that was a thing. So I think it was Eugenia that talked about that, right? I I don't know if it's safe or not. Do you like it?
Yes, I just started using it, and they have,
Okay.
you know, the one that I have is free, so it's very basic. But I think if you pay
Mm.
more, you can maybe have more storage. And
Oh,
then I think
okay.
there's also a way that you can transfer all your Gmail into Proton.
Ah, yeah, I'm actually reading that right now. Strong encryption all times, believe your data. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, probably you have to pay, right, to use more of their storage. Gmail
Yes,
is like 15 gigabytes. That is
yes.
totally free. But if you're not paying, you are the project. That's what they say, right? But thank you for sharing about Proton. I've never used.